I am from Jackson, and I have 2 years in recovery. Today, I am a mother, I am a daughter, and I am a peer support.
Well, thanks for joining us. And if you could start off by sharing a bit about your childhood.
I had a pretty good childhood. I grew up in a normal family, I would call it. I'm the only person that struggles with substance abuse. So, my parents got divorced when I was 13, and I kind of took it pretty hard. So, I think I started to rebel. So I kind of started drinking. It was like every weekend, and then it kind of progressed to every day. And then the people around me were like using Adderall and cocaine. So that's where I kind of like experimented with other substances. And then eventually I was using them to cope with my emotions. And it kind of led me down a dark path around the wrong people.
Gotcha. And did it help you cope initially?
Yeah, it was like the only coping skill I had at the time.
And did you start to experience any consequences? And did family members start to say anything? If you could talk about that.
Yeah, I was probably, I want to say 17 when my parents kind of noticed that something was wrong, and I got in trouble for sneaking out and partying when I was supposed to be at friends' houses, and my mom tried to kind of take me to the sheriff's office and scare me, and it didn't help at the time. And then eventually I was fresh out of high school. I was 18 years old, and I went to my first treatment center. I eventually did methamphetamine for the first time, and it wasn't fun at all. I was honestly depressed the whole time I was high. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like I had a lot of goals and plans for after high school. And eventually I started using meth every single day. And it got to the point where I was pregnant and I was homeless. But like I didn't even want to stop then. So I kept using, and CPS got involved, and eventually they took custody of my oldest child, and everybody was telling me like, Lindsay, you gotta go get clean, like you're a mother, you've gotta go get clean for your child, and I didn't want to. I wasn't ready, and so I kept trying to make other people happy, and I went to a lot of treatment centers, and it's like every time I got out I did the same thing because that's what I wanted to do. And eventually that led to a lot of consequences other than CPS. I got put on probation, and I went to jail, and then I found fentanyl, and in 2020 I overdosed, and they Narcaned me over 7 times.
Oh my!
And then even then I still used. That wasn't even enough to wake me up, and so my probation officer kind of called me and was like, "You're gonna die," and so I agreed to go to treatment again, and I ended up finished the program, and I got pregnant again. So I moved back home, and once I moved back home, I was almost ready. I was in the contemplation stage. Like, I knew that what I was doing wasn't working anymore, but I was scared to take the jump, and so I continued using, and my using was very isolated then. And eventually I did have my second son, and there were drugs in his system, and CPS got involved with him too, but I don't know what clicked, but it was like a light bulb moment kind of, and I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I put myself in detox, and I stayed there for I think 10 days, and I came home, and I did intensive outpatient, and I really just like kept myself busy and involved in recovery. And yeah,
that's fantastic that when it does, and that you knew what you could do. Like you knew you needed to get detox, you needed to get treatment. I mean, that's as much as it's painful to go through those previous experiences. when you were ready, you knew what to do, which is fantastic. So you had mentioned CPS being involved, and it's a lot when you get sober, but also having little kids and CPS, and that's a lot to handle. So what did you have to do for CPS, and how did you work that to be able to have custody of your children?
So CPS set up a case plan, things that they wanted me to do, and it was things like I needed to do some kind of outpatient services consistently. They wanted me to, I had to have transportation and my driver's license back so I could transport my kids to doctor's appointments and stuff, and things like have a job. I had to be able to support myself and my kids, and honestly just consistency. They wanted to see me passing drug screens regularly every time, and I did, and it took probably about 8 months, and then we went to court a couple times, and then they closed my case.
Beautiful. What kind of work did you get initially early on?
Like job wise, I started at a Dairy Queen in my hometown, and it was like that was the only employer that would take a chance on me because this is my hometown and everybody knows my story and stuff. So, and I worked my way up. This makes me emotional too because like I was so proud of myself. They turned me into a shift lead like 3 months from being there, and then by the time I left, she wanted me to be the assistant manager.
Oh, it's pretty spectacular. So you've really started rebuilding your life, having custody of your children, being able to be that mom that you knew that you could be. What other goals do you have for yourself, and kind of dreams for the future?
So right now I am a peer support specialist, and I do have my CDCA license because when I did get clean, I did have a couple of counselors that really advocated for me, and that really pushed me, and like that really believed in me. And after you've tried to get clean so many times and failed, a lot of people don't believe in you anymore. And I wanted to be that person for other people. So right now I'm working as a peer support at Hopewell, and I do plan on going back to college. I want to do social work. I kind of want to work for CPS. I know that's a hard job, but I've been there. I know what it's like. So
absolutely. And having that lived experience and then the education, I mean, that's a powerful punch to be able to bring to the table. So you mentioned of having, probation and whatnot. What have you done to be able to work through the court system to be able to clean up that part of it?
That was hard. When I was using, I never checked into probation, ever. And I was on it for like 5 years. And so I checked in like every month, like I was supposed to. I went in there. I sent them my pay stubs because that will count as your community service if you're working full time. I made sure that they had my pay stubs all the time, and I went in there and I was like, listen, I've been doing outpatient for over a year, never failed a drug screen. I'm working. What do I have to do to get off probation? And they told me to pay my fines. So I went in there, and as much as it hurt me to spend that much money, I paid all my fines off, and they let me off probation.
How much did you have to pay?
It wasn't as bad as other people's. So it was probably like $2,000.
Oh my!
Yeah.
It's quite a chunk of change.
Yeah, and and I don't like to spend that much money on things that aren't instant gratification.
Yes, absolutely. So as a mom in recovery, things come up. Life can be challenging. How do you work through those challenging days?
I really utilize my support system. The people that I started working with when I first got clean, I still keep in contact with them. And I call them anytime I'm triggered, anytime I'm really having a rough day. I just take like 5 to 10 minutes to myself and just try to breathe.
So in your recovery, can you talk about any stigma that you dealt with and how you overcame it?
Yeah. Like in my hometown, when I was trying to get a job, everybody knew me as a drug addict. And it was really hard. It was like I created a reputation for myself that a lot of people weren't willing to let go of. And that's another thing with CPS. I feel like they held the old me against me for a little bit, and it was really hard to prove people wrong.
And how did you prove them wrong?
Consistency, and I just No matter what anybody said or thought, I just did what was right and what I needed to do for myself.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, that action speaks louder than words, is that old cliche, but it's so very true in this instance. So, you know, in virtually every case out there, we damage family relationships and friend relationships. How did you repair those relationships?
The hardest ones for me were my parents. My mom has custody of my oldest son, and she still does. Just we haven't crossed that bridge yet. But that one was really hard because when she had him at first and I was still using, I would always come around high. I would be like, I'm not going to use before I come and see him, and I would use while I was there. And it was really hard to rebuild that relationship because so many times in the past I told her I'll get clean, and then I kept using, and I wasn't allowed at my family's house very often. And when I first got clean, I ended up living with my dad and my stepmom, and it was like they didn't want me to hardly go anywhere. They wanted to know that I was home and I was safe, and that was really hard because I felt like a child, but that was my fault. That's what I did. So
being able to have your son and being that full-time mom, are you still living with your dad and stepmom?
No, me and my boyfriend have our own house now.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
It's me, my boyfriend, and my youngest.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Could you share some inspiration and hope for those who are still struggling?
No matter how many times it takes, eventually it's gonna work. You just gotta keep trying.
That is for sure. Is there anything that we missed that you would like to talk about? Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your beautiful life. You know, you really highlighted, you know, those trials and tribulations that you go through, and how tough it can be. But then, you know, once it clicks, what a beautiful life you have. So thank you so much.
Thank you.